We're joined now by Marwan Bishara, Al Jazeera's senior political analyst. And Marwan, we're hearing that the Israeli War Cabinet, the Prime Minister, the Defense Minister, another minister are meeting yet again on Thursday. We might hear from them later. But before we hear from them, we've already heard from the Defense Minister yet again saying that after the ceasefire ends, the fighting with Hamas will continue because their objective is to destroy Hamas. And he went on to give a little bit more detail than he had on Wednesday by saying that he anticipates that the fighting could last another 2 months. I mean, what do you make of the Defense Minister saying this on the eve of a ceasefire deal?
Well, clearly that the Israelis are trying to justify for themselves why they had to do the pause that they were essentially and principally against. It's only under pressure by a certain segment of the public opinion within Israel and certain pressure by the United States that they finally accepted those 4 days. Maybe they could be extended for 1 or 2 or 3 more days, but at the end of the day, the Israeli military and political establishment want to continue with the war. They insist on continuing with the war and basically achieve its objectives, right? Which is presumably to defeat Hamas. Now, a lot of Israelis now from the southern part of Israel and the northern part of Israel, as you know, have been displaced into the center of Israel. Although they are staying in hotels and the likes, they are complaining. So Israel needs to give some sort of a signal. How long will this take? And how much of a damage will it cause the economy? Because as we know, the economy is taking a beating in Israel. Now, some talk about $250,000 losses a day. Mm-hmm. There's also a signal to the United States that this is not an open-ended war, that if it took 6 weeks to where we are today, another 2 months perhaps. And of course, for the rest of us who are keeping score of the incredible death and destruction that is taking place, another 2 months means the actual flattening and destroying of Gaza.
Yeah, absolutely. And on the subject of signaling to the United States, Israeli media is also reporting that Prime Minister Netanyahu spoke to US President Joe Biden on the phone on Wednesday, and that Biden asked Netanyahu, he encouraged a truce in the north with Hezbollah. Do you think that the United States is really putting any pressure on Israel to stop this conflict from spilling over into the region?
You know, in the beginning, at least the first 5-6 weeks, I was thinking that President Biden has boxed himself in behind Netanyahu, giving him unconditional support despite the war crimes. It was signaling to other powers around the world that once the United States commits to support, for example, Ukraine against Russia or Israel in the Middle East, that it would not stop despite the price to its credibility. But now it's clear that Biden wants to see an end to this. And clearly Biden has a sort of a wider lens than Netanyahu. He sees that the future of Israel in the Middle East is at risk. And all these agreements that Israel signed with Arab countries are at risk. And that those potential agreement with Saudi Arabia is no longer in the horizon under the circumstance. And hence Biden is actually thinking of Israel's interest, not of just America's interest and its own standing in the world. And he sees that the price is exceeds far the objectives, and that the death and the destruction will come back and haunt him and haunt America's credibility. And hence he wants to see certain things happen. He wants to see the war being rounded up. He would like to see not widening in the north. And certainly he would like to see certain red lines that we've heard the Secretary of State repeat once and again, albeit rejected by Israel. And these are 3. 1, no occupation of Gaza after the war, no ethnic cleansing of the Palestinians during the war, and no shrinking of the territory of Gaza under the pretext of, say, security zones and the likes. So clearly there's some daylight now, and that's kind of increasing with time between the United States and Israel, because Israel is blindly carrying its genocide against the Palestinians with absolutely no understanding of the consequences. What does this mean for the region and for its allies? Because the war crimes that are being carried will have implications, will have repercussions in the region and beyond.
Marwan, thank you very much for that. That's our senior political analyst, Marwan Bishara.